The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to the Jewish crowds, "I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever, and the bread that I will give is my flesh for the life of the world." The Jews quarreled among themselves, saying, "How can this man give us his flesh to eat?" Jesus said to them, "Amen, amen, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you do not have life within you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him on the last day. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in him. Just as the living Father sent me, and I have life because of the Father, so also the one who feeds on me will have life because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Unlike your ancestors, who ate and still died, whoever eats this bread will live forever." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
This Sunday there will be procession in many parishes with the Blessed Sacrament as a part of today's celebration. By the way, we are going to have our procession right after 11:30 Mass today. There was a time when such Blessed Sacrament processions were much more common on this solemnity. Walking in procession as a group of believers behind the Blessed Sacraments reminds us that we are all a pilgrimage together, trying to follow the Lord so that He can lead us to the great banquet of eternal life. The procession behind the Eucharist also speaks to us of the ways that the Lord journeys with us on this great pilgrimage of life. He accompanies us throughout our lives, just as He journeyed with the two disciples on the road of Emmaus. He is the Good Shepherd who goes ahead of us and walks alongside us, guides us, strengthens us, and sustains us. He journeys with us when times are good and also in those valleys of darkness when we are tempted to doubt His presence. Yet, He is always there, leading us to restful waters to receive our dropping spirit, in the words of the Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd." The Eucharist procession also proclaims that the Eucharist is our spiritual food for the journey of life. This is the message of Jesus in today's Gospel reading. He declares, "My flesh is true food, and my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink." We always attend our physical hunger if we are fortunate enough to have access to food. Sorry. There are parts of the world where famine stalks the land and people are dying of hunger. According to the first reading, when the people of Israel were delivered from slavery in Egypt and then journeyed through the wilderness for many years, they often experienced hunger. Sometimes they longed to go back to Egypt, where there was no lack of food, even if that meant going back to slavery. In that reading, Moses reminds the people that God provided food from them in the wilderness in the form of manna. Yet, as the people are about to leave the wilderness and enter to the promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey, Moses is concerned that although their physical hunger will now be satisfied, they will forget a deeper hunger in their lives, their hunger of God, for God. As they become more prosperous, they will forget God. They will fail to recognize that we do not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. We can also touch with the deeper spiritual hunger in our lives. In the gospel reading, Jesus offers himself to us as the one who can satisfy this deeper hunger in our hearts. He speaks of himself as the living bread, as the bread of life, and he invites us to come to him, to enter into communion with him. If according to the first reading, we live on every word that comes from the mouth of God, Jesus is the Word of God in a unique sense. He is the Word who was with God at the beginning, who was God and who became flesh, and is now with us until the end of time as the risen Lord. Our presence at Mass, at the Eucharist, is a very privileged way of coming to the Lord and enter into communion with Him. This is what St. Paul tells us in today's second reading. Speaking about the celebration of the Eucharist, he says, "The blessing cup that we bless is a communion with the blood of Christ, and the bread we break is the communion with the body of Christ." This letter was written only about 25 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus. So from its very earliest days, the church believed that when we gather at the Eucharist, we enter into communion with Jesus, with his body and blood. That is why we often speak of receiving the Eucharist as the moment of Holy Communion. In the Gospel reading, Jesus speaks of this communion between himself and us at the Eucharist. "Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me and I in him." It is through our loving communion with the Lord in the Eucharist that we draw life from himself. As Jesus says in the Gospel reading, "Whoever eats this bread will live forever." As we draw life from Jesus in the Eucharist, the deeper spiritual hunger of our heart is being satisfied. We come to the Eucharist every Sunday because the Lord calls us to remind us that we do not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Especially himself, the Word made flesh, the bread of life. As we draw life from Jesus, from him, at the Eucharist, he sends us out to be life-giving present to one another. As we enter into communion of love with the Lord in the Eucharist, he commands us to build communities of love in our homes, in our parishes, in our cities, and in our world.